It's never been about the person. That's why what you have done this past year has been so powerful and has had such an impact. This was not and never has been a Sarah Palin attack on family, on intelligence, on personality. Never once. This was a principled criticism of policy and a declaration of what we demand out of a representative. Accountability. That's why this has happened. If you focused on personality in your criticism of Congressman Tanner, no one would have listened. No one would care, and nothing would have happened. 500 people would not have shown up in Union City, in his hometown, in the belly of the beast, because you screamed at the top of your lungs that John Tanner wore ugly suits and was a bad father, and whatever you want to say. Whatever you make up about his personality, nothing good would have happened there. 500 people wouldn't have showed up in his hometown for those petty reasons. But 500 people left work early to show up in the belly of the beast. Most people from Union City. Because he voted to permanently ban drilling for oil in America. Because he voted for bailouts. Because he voted for clunkers. And because he wasn't accountable for a lick of it by not having a face-to-face meeting. And the list goes on and on and on. It wasn't a principled attacks. Never was. They were principled stances that you took that took down the 22-year incumbent congressman who looked at his political future against the SlaterRaiders, against you, and said, I don't think so. I'd rather not. Who, instead of taking the cushiest job of all time and continuing at that job, he said, I don't think so. Honestly, is there anyone within the sound of my voice right now who 5 years ago, who last year would think that John Tanner would retire ever? Not just like might retire, would ever retire. He'd be like John Dingell. He'd be like 95 years old. Of course not. So what happened that made him retire now? You woke up. You spoke out. And you knew what you were speaking out, not just against, but for. You knew exactly what you wanted. You wanted accountability. You wanted someone who said what they were going to do and did it. Even if it wasn't what you would have wanted them to do. Right? We've said so many times, we'd much rather have a Steve Cohen representative who's flaming on fire liberal and knows it and says it and votes it. Because we understand we live in a district with liberals and conservatives. So if you're going to be a liberal, that's fine. Just admit it. But don't say you're a conservative and then be a lapdog in Nancy Pelosi's bidding. You demanded accountability. You figured it out. You figured out that the trick that John Tanner spoke of 2 weeks ago. You figured out that the trick of legislating, as John Tanner said, is going for first downs instead of a touchdown pass. And Tanner's criticism of Obama was that he was going for a touchdown pass, but Tanner was just going for first downs, but in the same direction. But that's the wrong direction. You figured it out. And because of what you've done, 3 principled men stood up and said, I will run against him. 3 men stood up and said, I've never held office. I've never run a campaign. I never wanted to hold office. I still don't even really want to do it. But we need to do something, and I'm going to do it. 3 men stood up. Stephen Fincher, David Rice, Don Janes, you made that happen. That's never happened before. And they weren't the only people who decided to do something. They just decided to run. You decided to spread the word. You held the torch of liberty that we talk all the time about. You made a conscious decision to be the spokesman for conservative values in West Tennessee. You've gotten the attention of media outlets across the country. And you made a 22-year incumbent congressman decide not to run anymore. Now what? The fun's just getting started. Fun is just getting started. If you want a conservative, not a Republican, if you want a conservative in office in 2010, it just got harder. If you're jumping up and down right now, if you just got to get a good start to your Wednesday morning, I don't want to bust your bubble, but it just got a little bit harder to elect a conservative in 2010. Tanner was a sitting duck, and he knew it. He had votes a mile long. Absolute sitting duck, so easy to pick off. But now we have Lo Finney, who will probably run. He's the state senator in Madison, Gibson, and Carroll counties. We have Roy Herron, who has already announced that he's going to run for John Tanner's seat. These guys, Lo Finney is John Tanner 20 years ago. Roy Herron is John Tanner 5 years ago. And they will all be John Tanners as soon as they step foot in Washington. But the case is harder to make against these guys because they're good-looking guys and they got attractive wives and no one's really ever heard of them that much. The case is harder to make against these guys, but that's okay because it doesn't matter what the case is against them. It doesn't matter. What matters, and the SlaterRaiders have held true to this principle since day one, what matters is the case for the true citizen representative. Whoever you choose. Fincher, Janes, Rice, is anyone else? I don't care. You are making the case for a representative in the spirit of George Washington and Cincinnatus. It's the case for states' rights and individual rights. It's not the case against Lo Finney and Roy Herron and whoever else steps up. It's the case for freedom and liberty as it applies to every single issue that comes our way. It's the case for capitalism and free markets. And it's the case for accountability. It's the case for America, not against anyone. And the SlaterRaiders will never get dragged down in the mud. There's no need to. There never has been and there never will be. Because you are standing on the shoulders of giants. And stand tall. Because the fun just begun. Congratulations.
West Tennessee's TJ Network.